Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study of Hosea, and we're going to look at Hosea chapter 4. And this, of course, is part of our larger study of the prophets, the writing prophets to the northern kingdom. Elijah and Elisha, both quite famous prophets, were prophets to the northern kingdom, but they did not leave a written account of their prophecy. We know about them from the narrative sections of Scripture. Well, we started out with God in chapter 1, calling Hosea and forcing him, instructing him, I should say, to live what God is living, to marry a woman of prostitution, to have children by her, and then to have her leave him again and go back into her prostitution. In chapter 2, we have God's feelings about how his own people have treated him this way. The people and God have a covenant, God to people like a marriage covenant, and they have played the harlot. They have become an adulteress with other gods. And God's emotions that he expresses in chapter 2 are textbook emotions of the wronged husband, the husband who's been cheated on. And then in chapter 3, he tells Gomer to go buy her back, go pay the price all over again. And of course, God does pay the price to have us all back. He pays the price in Jesus Christ. And we see him looking forward to the Messianic age in chapter 3, verse 5, whenever the king from the line of David will be king eternally and will receive the people again. That's Jesus. Now, chapter 4 through the end of chapter 13, we are going to have God's feelings. What we had a taste of in chapter 2, we're going to have full bore. And it's going to get dark and it's going to get deep. And for several chapters, he's going to lay out the case. He's going to be the husband who is looking the unfaithful wife in the eye, saying, "This is what you did. This is what you did to me. This is what I did for you, and this is what you did to me. You did this, 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 and this. This is what it meant. This is what it feels like to have you do this to me." And so we're going to begin with chapter 4, read the 19 verses in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the best known section and the most oft-quoted section of Hosea in the rest of Scripture, and the best known to us as well. Let's read chapter 4. "Listen to the word of the Lord, O sons of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land, because there is no faithfulness or kindness or knowledge of God in the land. There is swearing, deception, murder, stealing, and adultery. They employ violence so that bloodshed follows bloodshed. Therefore the land mourns. Everyone who lives in it languishes, along with the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky, and the fish of the sea disappear. Yet let no one find fault, let no one offer reproof, for your people are like those who contend with the priests. So you stumble by day, and the prophet will also stumble with you by night, and I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will also reject you from being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of God, of your God, I will also forget your children. The more they multiply, the more they sinned against me. I will change their glory into shame. They feed on the sin of my people and direct their desire toward their iniquity. It will be like people, like priests, so I will punish them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. And they will eat but not have enough. They will play the harlot but not increase, because they have stopped giving heed to Yahweh. Harlotry, wine, and new wine take away the understanding. My people consult their wooden idol, and their diviner's wand informs them. For a spirit of harlotry has led them astray, and they have played the harlot, departing from their God. They offer sacrifices on the tops of mountains. They burn incense on the hills, under the oak, poplar, terebinth, because their shade is pleasant. Therefore your daughters play the harlot. Your bride commits adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they play the harlot, or your brides when they commit adultery, for the men themselves go apart with harlots and offer sacrifices with temple prostitutes. So the people without understanding are ruined. Though you, Israel, play the harlot, do not let Judah become guilty, and do not go to Gilgal or up to Beth Aven and take the oath, as the Lord lives. Since Israel is stubborn like a stubborn heifer, can the Lord now pasture them like a lamb in a large field? Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. Their liquor gone, they play the harlot continually. Their rulers dearly love shame. The wind wraps them in its wings, and they will be ashamed because of their sacrifices. There's so much that is going to be expanded upon that is mentioned here in this chapter. Um, but look at the way he's the husband making the case. You did this. When you did this, you did so much more. You didn't just commit adultery, but you lied and you betrayed and he's got the list. There is no faithfulness or kindness, faithful and knowledge. Those three things are lacking. Faithfulness, faithfulness to God, faithfulness to your covenant, kindness, that's loving kindness, that's hesed. That's not just being nice. It's a much bigger word. It's one of the most important words in the Old Testament, hesed. It means covenant loyalty. It means we're covenanted together, and therefore we treat each other differently, and we have obligations to each other because we have a covenant together. And I respected my covenant to you, and you soiled your covenant with me. And knowledge means so many things. It doesn't just mean cognizance. It means intimate knowledge. It means thorough knowledge, and it means relationship. In fact, the word know can sometimes be a metaphor for sex, and that's why it has so much meaning in this, and it serves as the perfect metaphor in this chapter. So he said that you didn't just sleep with this guy. You did this, 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 and this in the process. And then he talks about all the people that you hurt. This doesn't just affect you; it affects everybody. And then he talks about how you can keep justifying, and the priests tell you you're okay, and how you've gone after these things, but none of them has been satisfying to you, and none of it ever will. And then he talks about all that was done in the act of, in the act of idolatry. You did this, 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 and this. You played the harlot, you offered sacrifices on the tops of the mountain, you burnt incense on the hills, under oak, poplar, terebinth, because the shade is pleasant, and your daughters played the harlot. And he means that literally. He's talking about cultic prostitution. The Baal cult is a fertility cult. Baal's the man, Asherah is the woman, Baal is the storm, the earth Asherah is the earth. And whenever the storm impregnates the earth, then we have plenty. And men would go to the temple where women, married women, engaged women would take their turn being temple prostitutes and reenact. This is not metaphorical. This is literal. And he says, I'm not going to give special punishment to the women because the men are doing the same thing. These destinations, Gilgal and Beth Aven, they are key not only in all of Jewish history, Gilgal being the first place they camped when they crossed the Jordan River after their wilderness wanderings, but it was a key military victory for the Jephthah line. Beth Aven, the word Aven means evil, the house of evil. It's also a place, but it means the house of evil. It's also the first time, and I'm going to have to end with this, in this chapter, in which he refers to the northern kingdom as Ephraim. I don't know exactly why he refers to the northern kingdom as Ephraim, but he does it 14 times in the book of Hosea. And this is the first time. So when we read Ephraim, that means Israel, that means northern kingdom. Sometimes he says Samaria, which is the capital city. All four of those words, designations, mean the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay, we're going to look at chapter 5 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes, now nearly 10